Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of VCTV with your host, Kyle Ellicott. We are jumping into an exciting topic today, and that is talking about what is happening on the ground in Asia when it comes to investment opportunities, whether that be in leading frontier technologies or deep technologies, as they're sometimes referred to, such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, maybe even a little bit of space. Discussion. We're also going to be talking about what's happening in the blockchain and digital asset sectors when it comes to countries within and throughout Southeast Asia, where you should be thinking about or looking at from an investment perspective or building as an entrepreneur. And I'm very lucky to be joined with some outstanding friends of the VCTV family who will be sharing their thoughts and experience as investors investing within the regions or based locally in the region, building and working within those communities as well. But before we introduce each of them, a big thank you to the LaToken team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. Again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's jump right into introductions. Gary, welcome back. Always a pleasure. Going to kick it off with you today. A little intro and background for everyone.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kyle. It's great to be here. Great to see some familiar faces. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I've done 17 startups and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. As Kyle said, I love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. We, I almost said navigate the world to look for the best AI and quantum companies and bring them to Silicon Valley using Silicon Valley as support. So great to be here. I'm the CEO, co-founder, and president of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios. Thanks, Kyle.
There we go. GSD, everybody. Tobias, welcome back as well. A little intro and background, please.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm calling out of Singapore, so I'm right now in Southeast Asia. We have a $75 million fund here where we invest in early stage companies in the blockchain and the emerging technology space. We've had a very global investment thesis. Of course, we do double down and do think that in Asia, there's a lot of opportunities across all the countries. I've myself lived in China, Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, Singapore, so I'm quite familiar with the area, and I'm excited to see and get a more perspective about the AI sector as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Singapore. For those that may not know, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS, has been aggressively pushing forward new plans and opportunities and opening up doors around blockchain and the digital asset space, along with a few other areas of technology. So we're going to be coming to that here in just a moment. But last but not least, Anuuj, welcome back. Always a pleasure, my friend. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Great seeing you once again, Kyle. So quick introduction, being a startup founder for the last 11 years, started 3 startups in the last decade. Most recently took an exit from my last venture, which was an app called Skivi. I'm now working as a founder for Yellow Sapphire Technologies, which is an IT development center based out of India. Along with it, I'm working on my next health tech startup, which is called Atutum. That's ATUTUM. Working on angel investments across Israel, and at present working towards expanding towards Middle East. So yeah, great to be back on the show, man.
Awesome. Great to have all of you as well. Let's jump right in. And, Gary, I do want to start with you around artificial intelligence. Looking at deep tech, what have you been seeing in terms of trends or opportunities within Asia or Southeast Asia? As GSDV focuses on a very global level, but just as an industry expert, talking about artificial intelligence, talking about quantum computing, what is actually happening on the ground in Asia that you can share with us?
Well, I mean, the situation is, as we know, China just announced that they have a quantum computer that is 1 million times faster than Google's, which is 158 million times faster than the fastest supercomputer. So there's a tremendous amount of effort being focused in on throughout Asia on artificial intelligence. Why, Kyle? Because AI is the new electricity. Data is a fuel, and quantum is a turbocharger. And what we need to do is understand that in order to solve the complex problems that are around us today, that we need to look for artificial intelligence, semi-supervised and unsupervised, to be able to help us to deal with the issues, whether it's global climate change, farming 4.0. I've been with 3 farming companies that are into farming and optimization today, from the table all the way down through to back through to the supply chain to the field. So how do we optimize to be able to feed the people that, we got 1.3 over 1.3 billion people in China today. And if we look at the rest of Asia, we got a lot of mouths to feed. And the population increase going from 8.1 billion to 13 billion during this century, we've got to figure out how to be able to optimize those sources. We also got to look at climate change. It's understood that we need AI, computer vision, drones, satellite technology to understand that data. As we start to go down through this global warming, we're going to see a lot less fresh water. Where can we find that fresh water? How can we use technologies like desalination and artificial intelligence to be able to make those plants more efficient? It's not if it's going to happen, it is happening. It's not when we're going to run out of food and low food supplies. By 2050, it's projected we're going to have to double the food supplies on the planet to be able to feed everybody. And Kyle, we can't increase the number of cattle because 26% of the methane today is caused by cattle. We got to look at plant-based protein. We got to look at ways using AI, Internet of Things, and technology to be able to help us drive forward through this century and beyond. And it's a critical time for all of us. And in Asia, throughout Asia, whether it's Singapore, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's Indonesia, you're seeing explosive growth in artificial intelligence. China, Taiwan, explosive growth. So we need to work together throughout the world to be able to make this world a better place.
That we do, and thankfully we've got all these great opportunities when it comes to new technologies, right, entering into our world. You've called out a few of them in addition to food tech and the areas of focus that we need to. And Anuuj, I want to come down to you. I mean, you're focusing on fintech. You're also focusing on health tech. You're looking in Israel, India, and also many other countries. Share anything to add on to Gary's points of some of those last areas that overlap with you. But in general, what are you seeing around your core areas of health and fintech within Southeast Asia? And then I have a follow-up specific to India for you in just a moment.
Sure. So,
Is that just me?
Nope. I think we may have lost Anuuj. So Anuuj, I'm going to put you on mute for just a moment.
But I love the face. I don't know why this always catches people in the kind of strangest positions. You know what I mean?
Poor Anuuj. It's all right. It happens to all of us. It is the Zoom life that we live. Tobias, switching gears back over to you, Singapore and blockchain digital assets. Singapore is opening up the world. However, other countries within Southeast Asia are pushing back. Notably, we have China that is locking things down or shifting their entire openness around digital assets and instead focusing on the blockchain technology internally. We have South Korea that's putting in more regulations. There's news about a few venture funds and companies that are going under regulation, and also just general, further viewing. We also have Japan that's been a little quiet as to what's happening locally there. Singapore opening up, Indonesia opening up as well, and also India back and forth on crypto versus blockchain versus others. What's kind of your view as what you're seeing from being in Singapore, running this $75 million fund, as to the opportunities or themes around blockchain and digital assets?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a bunch of very interesting points. But I think what I really like about Southeast Asia, that of course everybody thinks at first about Singapore because it's one of the most developed nations here, and it obviously has very favorable government institutions and regulations for all types of new technology, right? It's not just the blockchain space, it is artificial intelligence, but it is startups in general, right? Our government is doing a lot of good things in order to support the entrepreneurship space here. But actually what I wanted to put the emphasis on, it's not just Singapore, right? It's not just Korea. It's also smaller countries like Cambodia, like Indonesia, or smaller is a good word, but at least like less developed countries. If you look at Cambodia, just one extreme example, they recently launched Bakong, which is a blockchain-based payment switch. Right? Cambodia is one of the most undeveloped countries in Southeast Asia still, and they are already from a government perspective thinking of how can we use blockchain or emerging technology to solve problems within our countries. And that's crucial because if you think about how much a bank transfer costs in those countries, that might not seem a lot to more developed nations. If it's 50 cents to a dollar when you send money from bank to bank, that's essentially the same price as going out for a meal in those countries, right? So it makes a substantial difference if you spend that money or not. And furthermore, if you look at the Philippines, for example, you have 75% of the people being unbanked, right? They simply have no access to financial services in that way we know it. And that's a big problem of actually bringing that country to prosperity, because it's so much difficult for businesses to get loans because they don't have a credit profile. But blockchain and emerging technologies, they will support those systems. And that's why you see a very fast adoption rate in terms of these technologies within those countries. And the government in itself, and Thailand is another great example, which is now developed in one of the blockchain hubs in Southeast Asia, which has been driven tremendously by the government itself. And it also became some sort of startup hub for crypto and blockchain companies, exchanges, big players like Sitmax, also the gaming space exploded. And then I do think that with the COVID life and the more decentralized working environment in itself, that now a lot of other countries see tremendous growth in those startups. I mean, Axie Infinity is one of the biggest games right now. It essentially came out of Vietnam, right? Which no one would have expected 10 years ago. It wasn't Silicon Valley, it wasn't Singapore. So the shift is definitely happening. I think it's a good thing because we will see a lot more talent coming out of different areas. And but it also makes it more difficult from an investor perspective to be able, on top of deals and source deals, actually understand different environments, understand different regulations, understand what it means to invest in those countries. And that's exciting. And I do think that it's going to have a tremendous support on the ecosystem in Southeast Asia in general. Although, of course, there's still a significant difference in sophistication of solutions and products and services if you compare Singapore to, let's say, Indonesia as of now. But that's fastly catching up, and I think Singapore should stay on their belief of not being caught up by other bigger countries, which are also moving very fast.
Yeah, and Anuuj, welcome back. Want to throw last point of Tobias's over to you around India to kind of start with is, we're seeing a lot of this progression of digital assets and blockchain being leveraged and pushed back against, but also welcomed throughout Southeast Asia. What are some of your thoughts, or what are some of the things you're seeing within India and some of the surrounding countries as to how this technology may or may not roll out? And Tobias was just mentioning gaming as a big area that he's seeing a lot of activity, in addition to fintech and remittance, or the movement of money in general.
So things are actually changing very rapidly in India. It's the point that I was just making before my internet dropped. It's throughout human history, we have seen some amazing innovation come in, but they have always been regional. For the first time, with the advancement in internet and the world being so connected, we are actually seeing that technology spread across the world and everyone adopting it at the same time. And that applies to technologies like blockchain as well. So you're now seeing Western European countries that are very actively adopting blockchain gaming, that are trying to become more mainstream. Over the last 2 years, mobile gaming and console gaming has practically exploded in India. The 1.3 billion population that was very hesitant, and then the culture in Southeast Asia that has looked at video games as something evil is now actively adopting it, with millennials and Gen Z actually trying to figure out a career not just in playing games but also in game development, and sort of using other technologies to make that thing even more captive and even more exciting. That being said, it's not the only area where you're seeing growth. You're practically seeing some revolutions coming in. 1917, 1980s, the Indian population has gone through multiple famines. We have always been a very densely populated area. So the food production or the food output that we had coming in from agricultural industry was fairly low. With the advancement of technology, the country was able to sort of upscale that production in a matter of years. And I believe the same is going to happen now as well. We are seeing a huge boost coming up in agri-tech companies. Just in the last 2 months, I have had 7 agri-tech companies come up to me to pitch their ideas themselves. And I truly believe that number is only going to go up from this point onwards. Gone are the days when you would want to factory farm animals. With the advancement in human animal rights, We now want to make everything more sustainable, and that's going to be the keyword for the future. So for emerging countries like China, India, Singapore, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, you're gonna see more sustainable living and a push towards that in not just food or clothing, but in almost every avenue of life. So more sustainable way of living, more sustainable way of travel, more sustainable way to live with the communities in such a densely packed area where we have sort of over commercialized everything and then over industrialized everything. The public is feeling the harmful effects of that, and then they're going through very weird problems which you would usually expect in a first world country, like deep pollution and then sort of highly toxic environment. So I think slowly that's going to change, and then for the next decade from 2022 until 2030, you're going to see a very slow but very progressive change towards a more sustainable way of living.
So talking about sustainability and looking at Asia, I mean, where else should we be thinking about as investors on kind of how to invest in these regions, invest in these technologies locally if we're not based there as well? And Gary, would love to hear your thoughts. Again, GSDV, you're very widespread on a global level. How do you think, or what type of advice would you provide to those investors out there listening as to how they can start making investments and bets within Asia around AI, quantum, and some of the other areas that you may have mentioned?
They need to listen to VCTV, Kyle. Part of it is access, and to be, I mean, literally, it's how to get to those resources. And today we have to understand, and we've talked about it for the last 2 years when the beginning of the pandemic, is that we need to use this digital transformation and the medium that it's been able to provide to be able to get the word out. At the same time, to startups that are out there, make sure you have a physical presence. Make sure you've got the videos out there. Make sure you're right. Make sure you have visibility. Because as soon as you get on a call, as soon as you get on a Zoom with somebody, they're going to Google your name. They're going to see who you are. So make sure you have the presence. To investors out there, this is the greatest time because it doesn't matter where you are. You have access to everybody. Now you've got to use the medium wisely. You need to check LinkedIn. You need to go through your network, figure out who those companies are. You need to come to places like GSD where we have those connections to be able to help to vet those companies, make sure they have the right product, the right place at the right time. This is an incredible opportunity. There have been 30 unicorns in India this year, 142 unicorns in the US. This is an incredible time. I work very closely with some of the top folks from IT and incredible companies. You look at many of the companies in Silicon Valley, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world, the Twitters. You look at IIT graduates. So what we need to do is we need to work together. We need to work together to solve the problems of the planet. At the same time, we can create incredible business opportunities. And in Asia, this is a springtime. We're just planting the seeds for an incredible harvest, incredible opportunity. So now's the time. Investors, don't sit on your hands. Go out, look for those companies, look for the people that are dominating the space and making a dent in the universe.
Absolutely. Great final parting words. But before we do wrap up, Tobias, would love to know from a blockchain digital asset perspective, being based in Singapore, very different than being based in Europe or being based in the United States and other countries around the world. As when it comes to these technologies, what advice would you have, or what opportunities do you see open to investors, running your fund and areas of interest that you're investing in as well?
Yeah, very good question. To be honest, I was always a very big believer of actually entering the market and being present. That's why I lived in so many different places, because I wanted to understand what the dynamics are on the ground. So I moved to Thailand, moved to Cambodia, like all these places. But with the pandemic, it surprisingly is going pretty well of actually not having to go to the market, right? Because you do have all the mediums in place, similar to what Gary said before, of actually being able and being present and understanding the market from a more digital perspective. I think a mixture is probably an interesting part of doing. There is still a lot of understanding from a culture perspective, in my opinion, as well. And just because there is a slight difference in the market between the US, for example, or more Western countries and the Eastern world. However, I think now it's the time, essentially, because you see with the likes of Grab, Gojek, C Group, Lazada, and all these guys, where you see now a lot more talent coming into the market, right? Because these guys, they worked at Lazada, they have seen bigger companies scale, and now the talent is sort of trickling down from these larger organizations, and some of these are now entering and exiting and sort of starting their own startup, which is fantastic because that gives a lot more local knowledge and a lot more local talent, which is starting businesses now. And they have a tremendous advantage because they fully understand the market a lot better. And they do also have seen big companies scale. So I think right now it's an amazing time to enter Southeast Asia. It's still not as cheap as it was from a valuation perspective. A lot of stuff has been done. A lot of Western VCs have entered the market. You see the Sequoias, the Lightspeeds. We have a lot of different companies here. Most of them are still based out of Singapore, but do look at the three main markets, which they call it, which is essentially Indonesia. It's the biggest, but still most fragmented, which is Vietnam, because it is a very densely populated, but also young and technology-driven environment, and the Philippines, because it's the third biggest market, essentially. And has a lot of very unbanked population, as I mentioned before, and a lot of tremendous opportunities in the fintech space. But also neobanks are blowing up as well. So I think it's a mixture of literally working together, understanding the space, being present in the space, using all the touch points you have in the new normal world, and getting your hands dirty and understanding what it is. But it's still similar from a technology perspective. You see a lot of tremendous growth coming out of Singapore and very sophisticated solutions, similar to what you would expect, in a Silicon Valley of the world.
Thank you, Tobias. Anuuj, kind of close us out with your closing thoughts for those looking to start making investments within Asia, working with you or working with others on the ground. What does that look like? What advice would you give? And where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Sure. So being in India right now, it's the perfect time to start the investments. If anyone out there is looking to make an investment, be it as an institution, be it at an individual level, you'd always find someone to co-invest with you. There are multiple angel investment groups that are going out right now that are investing in their personal capacity. There are multiple institutes right now, Western VCs that have entered Indian market that are trying to co-invest with others. So it's very easy to find partners. It's very easy to find new companies. As Gary said, we have already had almost 40 unicorns coming out of India this year. So it's definitely a wonderful time to be here right now. Singapore and Indonesia are growing just as fast. So with that densely populated environment, you're only going to see a lot more opportunities in the coming year. And the fact that the main concern that a lot of investors had with Southeast Asian companies is that they could not easily get an exit. Are now seeing those. You have Paytm going in for an IPO, you have Zomato going in for an IPO, and not just delivering returns to their investors, but also growing the money many folds for retail investors as well. So to anyone out there, this is literally as good of a time as it could get. You're in a gold rush right now. Welcome to India. Welcome to Southeast Asia. If you're looking to find someone, you can always reach out to me online at Anuuj on Twitter, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you very much, Anuuj. Tobias, where can everyone find you and Blockchain Founders Fund, or BFF, to connect and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every early stage startup in the blockchain space, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, reach out to us on either website, blockchain.com. You can reach me on LinkedIn under my name, Tobias Bauer. Also happy to, contact me over email, toby@blockchainff.com. Always happy to chat and learn more about what you guys are doing.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Tobias. Gary, close us out. Where can everyone find you and GSDV to continue the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. I'd be happy to speak to people. Remember, this is a great opportunity for all of us. We need to, as I said, make a dent in the universe and change things, work together to make this world a better place. So reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you. And check my shows out, GSD Presents, and also on VCTV, The Founders Report. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you very much as well, Gary, Tobias, and Anuuj, for your thoughts and insights on investment opportunities in Asia and some of the surrounding technologies as well. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click like, share, and subscribe on today's episode, and also be able to tune into more of VCTV as we host these shows every day, all day, every week. And also, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. If you are building anything in these areas that we all mentioned today, please do reach out to each and every one of us. We'd love to learn more and connect further. Add context where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. Big thank you to LaToken team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. Until next week, everyone take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.